How's everybody today? All right, so I'm excited about this next project. I loved doing this. I remember the first time I did this with actually my own picture, and I just loved it. It was awesome. But it also teaches you so many things. And one of the things people use Photoshop for is designing, say, logos and things like that. And so I'm going to introduce you to some really basic things like designing shapes. You can do a lot of things with Photoshop. So we're going to get started. We're going to hit Create New. Now I have a bit of a different window than you do. You're probably still looking at the window that we typically look at when we're opening up things on remote PC. I'm doing this on my computer because I feel like you get a larger screen when I design things on this version of Photoshop. So that's the only reason I'm using this. So I'm going to name my work, Mrs. C. Please put your name on your work. I do still see versions of work that come through that don't have names on them. And without a name, it is very easy for me to kind of not know who it belongs to, especially like if it's in the wrong folder or something like that happens. So always start with your name. And then after that, I'm going to put abstract model. Okay. And this is probably version 6. So I'm going to call it version 6. Now, right now, I'm looking at a screen that looks like this. Yours, of course, is slightly different, but you still want to make sure you have the right measurements. So I've changed pixels to inches, and in terms of the width, I want 5. In terms of the height, I want 6. So this is really not going to be a large work of art. Now, the resolution is set at 72. I'm going to set it for 300. I'm going to leave the RGB. I'm okay with that, but this is pretty much how I want it to be sized, and resolution, color mode. As you know, we can always change color mode at a later date if we want to print. So RGB is good for now. So I'm going to click OK. And this is my 5x6 sheet of paper. So before I get started, I want to show you what step 1 of this process looks like. So this is an example of what we're going to do, or at least get started with. Now, the finished project, if you look, through our samples, you can see looks nothing like this. This is just almost giving us an opportunity to learn different things and to use them in something very creative. So I'm going to go to Arrange and 2 up vertical. All right, and I can certainly provide you guys with a copy of these shapes if it helps you to look at them and get a sense of what it is we're doing. But please understand that I don't want yours to necessarily look like this. I just want you to understand how the steps are going to work. So we're going to get started making shapes. This is my actual worksheet, and right now it's a little too big for the area. So, don't want it. I'm going to zoom out a little bit, zoom out some more. I want to see, I want to see the whole, piece of paper. It's going up too much. All right, that'll do. So here's my sheet of paper, and we're going to start making some shapes. The first shape is going to be very simple. This is my shape tool, and right now you see a very free-form shape here, or an organic shape, whatever you want to call it. We're going to go to the very first shape, which is a rectangle. Please do not feel like when you draw your rectangle or your square that it has to be in the same location as mine. I'm just giving us an opportunity to create these different shapes and understand how the various tools work. Okay, so for some reason, I must have, on an earlier project, decided that I wanted water. And so water wants to keep coming up. If you go through these 3 sections here, you have plain color. So if I just want color, I would click on the first box. If I want a gradient, I would go here. And if I wanted a pattern, I would go here. And that water comes up as a pattern, just like grasses and trees and any other type of pattern that I might want to have in something. But I don't want patterns right now. This is not the kind of project where patterns are going to necessarily be useful to me. And black is actually not going to be the color I'm going to go with either, but it's a good color for us to build. So that's why I'm going to start with black. Now I have noticed that when I've done this before, it likes to keep going back to the water setting. I just have to keep setting it back to the black, so don't worry about it. All right, so my first shape is in there and it says rectangle 1. I'm not going to change that, but what I am going to do is I'm going to go down here where the plus sign is and I'm going to click on it because I want a new layer. If I start to draw another shape, it will add to this. And I don't want these to be on the same layer. I want them to be separate layers. So I will call this multi-shape, because what I'm about to do here is I'm going to create a rectangle again. Let's just say I create a rectangle here, and there we go with that lovely water again. Changed it to black. But here's what I want to do. I'm going to go up here where it says combine shapes, okay? And I'm going to make another rectangle. I'm going to put it right there. And then maybe I'm going to take a little smaller one and put it here. And maybe I'll find a circle. If you want a perfect circle, hit your shift key, and then as you drag, you'll get a perfect circle. Okay, so now I've got all these shapes linked together. And how do I know they're linked together? Well, if I click away from it and then I click on it again and I go to my move tool and I try to move this, you can see I have created one single shape right there. Now this is a pretty bold looking shape right now. I might want to do something else to it while I'm working with it. So while it's still clicked and I've got the circle on here, I'm going to go up to this tool again on my options bar, and this time I'm going to hit subtract front shape. Okay, and then I'm just going to put an ellipse in here, and when I do that, now that ellipse removes. I've now pulled that away, and if I want to remove something else, it's still the black and the white up there. I can still remove. Maybe I want to remove more. Maybe I want to come over to the rectangle tool, take a little piece out here. That's fine. And maybe I'm still not done. Maybe I just want to take a little strip out here. All right, so my shape is done. I've just created this unique shape, whatever it is. Okay. The next thing I want to do is create a new shape. So I'm going to click the plus sign. The next shape, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to create a rectangle. Okay. And there's that water again. And when I go to my tools, here I want to intersect shape areas. Okay, so when I take another shape now, say it's a circle, and go over it like that, I've now created a half a circle. I've lost everything around it. So I could try that again in a different way. Maybe I want to try it again. And that one, of course, if I was going to name it, I would call it a half circle. Okay. But let's say this time, oops, let me go up to the right layer. This time, maybe I'll start with the circle. Okay, I've got the large circle, and it's going to make me keep going back to that every time. And then check the tool I've got, and we are intersecting shape areas. So if I take, say a rectangle this time. Do I want a rectangle? No, maybe I'll do another circle. If I do another circle and these intersect each other, it'll kind of look like that. So I'm creating these interesting shapes by allowing shapes to intersect each other. Okay. The next thing I want to do, plus sign for a new layer, I'm going to use a freeform shape. So if I go down to this custom shape tool here, if you go up to your options bar up here, you're going to see a menu that's going to give you a variety of shapes that come with the Photoshop program. And I don't have the same shapes you do, at least not on this version. So I'm going to choose a flower. You look for something that you want to use. Doesn't matter what you use. I'm going to go with this flower, and I will put this flower right here. I hope it turns out black, but it didn't. I might enlarge it a little bit. Again, I need to change the color on it. There's my colors. Oops. There we go. All right. Now I want to say take another shape. I've got it highlighted. It's still on. In fact, I'm going to name it real quick. Flower. And maybe I want to put a circle in the middle. Okay. And when I come up here, I say subtract front. Oh, Command Z. Command Z anytime you mess up, or go to your history panel and go to the one above. All right. So what I'll do is exclude overlapping shapes. So I'll put the circle here. And now you can see that it sort of has done a reversal on the colors. Okay, so that's kind of an interesting thing that I've just done there. And maybe I want to do it again. Maybe I want to exclude, but this time I just want to do like a circle there, and maybe I want to do a circle there. Okay, and a circle there. So I can do some creative things to these shapes by letting them overlap each other like that. Okay, and if there's another like I've got this regular rectangle here that right now is not very exciting, and I may end up choosing to do something more interesting to that as I go. So what have we not tried yet? Let's make sure we try everything. I just clicked on the tool, on the shape tool, so that I would get the options bar that I need. We have done, I think we've done intersect shape areas. In case we haven't, I'll start with an oval, and I'll take another oval. And is it still set? It is still set. Okay, so now it sort of intersects, and the two areas that touch each other create the shape. So I get this kind of weird shape that I can have there. I want to fill my space. I don't have a lot of things happening yet, so I'm going to add some more shapes. And right now I'm not going to worry too much about those tools that I just showed you. I'm just going to add some more shapes in here, and some are going to be rectangles, some are going to be circles, and now there's another thing that we can do with shapes that I didn't do in my sample, and I want to show you what that is. So let's just take what I would call a very boring shape. Okay, nope, I don't want that. Let me go back. I'm going to add a shape here. This is, I'm going to call this transform shape. Okay, and so I'll start with, maybe I'll make it a combination like the first one that I did, where I take, say, a rectangle, I take a circle, make sure I've got combined shapes. Okay, so I've got these two shapes that are kind of ready to go, and maybe I'll even add on something. I don't know. So now I've got this weird shape that I've just made. Okay, and so this is now one shape. Whatever this is, it is one shape. What if I want to do something really weird to it? You guys may recall when I was working on Mr. Produce Head, I was manipulating the hats a little bit when I was putting the hats on my people. I wanted those hats to fit. So to do that, I went to Edit, I went to Free Transform, and then I went to this little arc here. And when you click on this arc, weird things start to happen. Okay, so I can like drag that now, and I can drag that, and now this shape takes on a different look. And maybe this shape is a little bit too boring for me. So if I go back to that, which I believe was one of my original shapes, the multi-shape, and if I hit Edit and I hit Free Transform, I can do the same thing. Of course, I have to click the arc first, and I can just start dragging. How do I want this shape to go? Maybe I want it to come in a little bit. Maybe I want this to stretch in kind of a weird direction. Maybe the circle is gonna look a little weird. Okay, so just a few little curves, and now I'm making these shapes seem a lot different than they are. Now the plain old square right now is kind of boring to me now that I see all of these other things, so I'll probably just, for the fun of it, exclude, oops, I don't want to exclude the overlapping shape. Well, yes, maybe I do. Let's see if I got the right tool. Yes, I do. Okay, so now it's not quite as boring as it was before. And again, maybe I want to transform it completely, so I go to Edit, I go to Free Transform, I click that little arch there, and I can just sort of drag on it a little bit so that it is doing something more interesting than it was doing before. Okay, so that works. Now I do, some of these areas seem a little blasé to me, so since I like using space and having connections, and I can move these things later, once you realize what we're actually doing, you'll get a better sense of how you want things to look. This is just the beginning. Is there anything else that yeah, this shape right here was sort of, seems a little bit boring to me, so I think I will add to it. I'll combine shapes here, and maybe I'll just, you know, add an oval to it. Okay, so now it's not just a single shape anymore. All right, so I've got all my shapes, and I'm going to hit save. Okay, very important when you get this far, hit save. Okay, and of course I get a bit of a different screen than you do, but just make sure you're saving into your V drive, into your into your assignments folder, and that's good. And I'm going to get rid of this now because I don't need it anymore. So I have all of these shapes, and to click off of that one shape, I just need to go down to background, and now I'm just looking at the full picture. Okay, now we want to start adding color to these, because I also want to teach you how to do gradients. So this particular video is going to deal with shapes and gradients. So we're going to start with rectangle 1, and that happens to be rectangle 1. Now I don't want it to just be a color, I want it to be a gradient. So here's the first thing I have to do. I have to go to Layer, and I have to go to Rasterize, and then I have to click Fill Content. Now if I don't do that, then what will happen is, well, nothing will happen. So I have to do that for each shape. So now that I've done that, I'm going to go to my gradients, and you can pick any gradient. There's presets here, and it doesn't even matter what you pick. Let's just say I picked that, okay? And I really don't want that. So I'm going to open up the menu for that. And let me get the, where's my, okay. Okay. No. I'm trying to open up the menu. Hopefully yours just opened right up for you, because that's what it's supposed to do. And let's see, window, it says it's open, but I can see it's not. All right. What I'm looking for is the gradient editor, okay? And okay, and that helps a little bit. Oh, I know what I need to do. I need to click on the gradient here. Let me just go back. We're going to go back to the Rasterize Fill Content. Okay, so now what should happen is I took you to the wrong place. Okay, yes, these are all a bunch of gradients. They're all wonderful. And if I already knew that I wanted one of those, that would be great. But I don't want one of those. I want to make my own. So that's why I'm taking you back to where we started, which was just with the black. Now I did rasterize. Okay, that's very important. If you don't rasterize fill content, then you could end up putting a gradient over the whole sheet of paper, and I only want the gradient on the shape. So you're going to see in a second why it's so important. There we go. There's the gradient editor. You're going to see why it's so important that I use it from my options bar. Okay, so now here's the gradient editor. And this particular color scheme is pink, yellow, and orange. But let's say I don't want pink, yellow, and orange. I want something else. So I'll click on the pink and I'll change it to something. Maybe I want more of a burgundy. Okay, so I'll change that to burgundy. Maybe yellow. Not really into yellow, but I think I could go with sort of a pink. Okay, so I'm good with that. I do like the orange, so I'll keep the orange in there. But I might slide it over a little bit. And maybe I'll add one more color. If I want to add another color, my little hand is right there, and all I have to do is click, and now I can add another color there. So let's say I decide maybe a blue. That could be interesting. So I go with this blue. And let's just see if I like this. It does create an unusual look. It does sort of give it a bit of a green between the orange and the blue. I'm not big on the green part, but I'll stick with this because My objective here is not to come up with the best color in the world or the best combination. It's really just to show you how you can design your own gradients. And so if I decide I like this gradient, I can hit new. And so from now on, anytime I want it, it's going to pop up, and there it is right there. So I'm going to click OK. But in order for that gradient to show up here, what I have to do is I have this little crosshair. Do you see the crosshair there? If I start with, say, the first sample here, okay? The first sample is, when you hover over it, you can see that this is what we call, come on, give us the name, linear gradient. Okay, so you can see what happens with a linear gradient. If I left click and drag my line down to the bottom, there's my linear gradient. Maybe I don't like it in that direction. Maybe I want to see, well, you know what, maybe I like it better this way, so I can switch it. Maybe I think, you know what if I go this way? So the bottom line is, with a linear gradient, it's always linear, and I can adjust it in whatever direction I want simply by putting that line down. Now I'm going to move on to my next shape. And to keep things simple, I'm going to use the same gradient. I'm not going to make a new gradient for all of these. Not to say that you can't. I'm just not going to, at least not for this video. So I move on to my next shape. I'm going to stick with the same gradient, but I'm going to select radial this time. And where's my, click on this. Oops, before I can do anything, what did I forget to do? I forgot to go to layer. I forgot to go to rasterize, fill content. Okay, if I don't do that, I'm going to get that little negative sign saying, sorry, you can't do this. So once I do that, now I can do whatever I want. And so you can see how that gradient looks now that I put it into this shape. And again, I can try it in lots of different directions, see what I like the best, okay? And let's just say this is the one I want to go with. I'll stick with it, okay? All right, time to move on to my next shape. My next shape is a half circle, okay? And with all shapes, I have to go to Layer, Rasterize, Fill Content, okay? So where is my cute little half circle? I believe this is it. It's not highlighting for me. We'll just see real quick. Yes, that was it. And so I still have the radial on, and I kind of like that, so I'll just leave that since that works. All right, now if you don't want to have all gradients and you just want to go for a solid color, maybe on my ellipse, again, I'm going to go to Layer, I'm going to go to Rasterize and Fill Content. Ellipse 1, which one was that? And I might have to test because it's not kind of giving me a, oh, there we go. It's not giving me a heads up on where it was. Well, I still have the radial, and I think I want to try the angle. So I'm going to try the angle instead. And you can see angle, you'll see differently on different types of shapes. I'm not sure I'm liking the angle on this particular shape, so I'm going to switch over. That to me works a little better, so I'll stick with that. Okay, the flower I can probably have fun with, and a radial would probably look good, but I'll bet the diamond would look good too. So I'm gonna try the diamond. So again, Layer, Rasterize, Fill Content. Okay, so I just click, drag, see what happens. And that's kind of pretty, okay? But what if I had only like made my line go partial? Okay, so you don't have to run your line over the whole thing. And so if you only do a section, it'll only put the gradient in a section. So that's kind of an interesting thing to do too. You may not want that gradient to cover the whole thing that you've got. Our next shape is ellipse 2, and I believe, looking at the image, that it's this one. And I will go to Rasterize, Fill Content. And let's just say this time I don't want a gradient. I just want to stick with a color. And maybe I'm going to go with, you know, something kind of like this. So where is that shape? Oh, it's giving me the gradient, but still giving me the gradient. Okay. Let me make sure. Okay. For now, I'm just going to leave it alone, okay? Because I'm going to have to figure that one out because it should have switched back for me. So, in the meantime, let's try something here. With my rectangle, I'm not going to, there we go. With when you're doing a solid color, don't worry about doing the layer rasterize. Only do the layer rasterize if you're trying to add a gradient, okay? So that would be the difference. If, say, this next piece that I have here, rectangle 2, if I just want it to be pink, whoops, oh, that was the same one we just had, and maybe I'll leave it pink. Let me move up to my next shape, rectangle 3 here. Maybe that I want to be just purple. Okay, so that can just stay purple. My ellipse 3 here, maybe I do want to get back to a gradient for that, so I'll go to layer, I'll go to rasterize, I'll go to fill content, and click the gradient tool. And I'm going to do the angle one because I really want you guys to see what this one does. I know that you're not really getting a sense. It looks like it's just dividing it in half, and that's truthfully not what it is necessarily designed to do. I'll change this one to radial since it is a circle. Okay, and then what I might do is I might change this one to an angle, or maybe I'll change this one to an angle. If I go back to my first weird shape, which would be this one, and if I click on gradient, and if I click on the angle tool here, I think you'll get a better sense of what this one tries to do. And it's still seeming like it wants to do the same type of thing, like it's dividing it in half. I think when you don't take the line as far, you see, and maybe I don't need to, that's probably what it is. I don't need to start it all the way at the edge. If I start it more toward the center, I'm going to get kind of more of an interesting effect. So that's pretty much how you can change that around and get the kind of effect that an angle gradient is supposed to give you. So my last shape up here, I will go ahead and give that a gradient since I've done gradients on most of these. Rasterize, fill content, and the diamond, I don't feel like we've really seen the diamond, so I'm gonna just, there we go. So there's the diamond. Wherever you start the diamond is where the diamond kind of begins to open up for you. So that's kind of how you would get that in there. All right, so this is part 1 of our project, and there are 3 more steps to this. Whoops, I missed one at the bottom. Let me get that one really quick. And so we will, and I'm just going to make it a color. We'll just make it that nice deep purple. Okay, so this is where I'm starting. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to save this as I'm going to give it a different name because I want to keep both versions. So I'm going to say that this is version 7 because I want to keep the black and white version, but I also want to keep this color version. And you might like just this. You might look at this and think, wow, that's pretty cool. And you could even, if you wanted to, if this was going to be art and you wanted to do something with your background, you could just go to your background. You could click on the tool there that gives you solid color. You could put some type of a background back there. I wouldn't necessarily put that color back there, but you could put some color back there, you know, something light, something maybe that doesn't necessarily go with the colors that are already there. I mean, so you could certainly do something with it. We're not going to, though. I'm going to throw that away because I need that to stay white, because the next things that we're going to do are going to add to the whole abstract part of this model. So I'm going to stop the video here, and then you can look for part 2.